Can we take a moment to actually appreciate that we might have an isekai first? I could be misremembering, and while there has been slight alterations to this formula, there's definitely never been this exact example. So when overpowered characters are summoned to a new world, whether they had abilities before, like in the case of this Red Ranger, or, they get summoned and now they're busted. When people take the readings, right, like there's usually, in this case, they have a little amulet that they brings up a stat menu, or a lot of times it's a crystal ball that, like, reads their stats. One of two things is what almost always happens. They read the stats and, oh my god, he's so powerful, this dude's gonna be crazy. And in the case of it being a crystal ball, the crystal ball shatters, right? Because, oh my god, look how strong. Or, they at face value are like, this dude's weak as shit. But then we think as the viewer, he just killed some crazy beast. But they don't believe it because the stats say otherwise. That's the two direction it usually goes. So I was interested what they were gonna do when a Red Ranger gets his stats read. And boy was I surprised when a goddamn character spreadsheet popped up to break down his ranger, not only his ranger name abilities and all these different things. The fact that Ydra, this normal fantasy mage who barely is being concealed by that top, which has the strength and bonds of friendship, because otherwise how the hell are those things staying in place? She's like, what the hell? This man's aura defied time and space and brought in a menu and a character bio that would be in a goddamn magazine of your favorite Power Rangers level shit. Like, that is so funny the more you think of it. And the fact that they're just playing into, because every Ranger style show, whether you're watching the originals from Japan in the Sentai, series, or you're watching, the localized versions in terms of Power Rangers, there's a theme. There's Dino Rangers, there's this Ranger, like there's a different theme that keeps the Rangers, being themselves. And this one is bonds and friendship, and boy do they have fun with the adhesives and band-aids and just how the dumbest shit happens as the most fantasy characters known to man are piloting and using things that just don't make sense to them. This show is brilliant. And I really should reinforce that, Isekai, it's just getting started. You think it's oversaturated now? You just wait. We're going to get 10 Ranger shows a season, and I'm going to be here for at least half of them. Of course, if you want to support my work and see my full thoughts, though, do have that Patreon where we got those full live reactions if you're so interested. So I had a blast watching this episode. I thought it was funny, and honestly, it's like it takes the tropes, the absolute memes and trends of the Ranger style stuff, and then it does the same for the fantasy isekai stuff, and mixes them into one bowl. And it's very easy for that mixture to kind of taste like ass. But so far, it's pretty damn fantastic. So, I mentioned it last week. Not saying people, have to agree with this take. I'm just saying, for me, I'm just not a fan of, live action kind of Ranger style stuff. It kind of comes across as cringe to me. I just don't like how it looks. I don't like how it feels. So why do I prefer it in anime? Honestly, I just think the cringy nature of it just lends itself to feel better in anime, and I recognize it's not as because like when I see people in reality doing dumb little poses and all these different, it's like a magical girl stuff. Like I wouldn't want magical girls in live action. For me personally, not saying you have to agree with that statement. That's just how I feel. So in anime, it just kind of works out because I'm like, well, anime is already slightly cringe to begin with, and also they don't look like real people to me, so I can kind of like, it just feels like it can work better for me. I don't know, that's just how I feel. And there's a lot of elements about like fantasy isekai stuff too, that like a lot of the outfits that we see, like not even just the slutty ones, like half of the stuff I see these fantasy characters wear, if I saw it in live action, it just wouldn't look as cool, right? Like you really would have to bring your A game in production value. So watching a character who is already established in this world and he's already busted, like I did see some people last week say they would have preferred seeing his entire journey. I disagree. I've seen hundreds of these types of shows. I've seen the intro enough. I don't need it. I'm glad they skipped ahead personally. And two of the people who ended up getting carried away embodied by the golem, we end up working with and competing with, they're definitely, it's interesting because like the theme is obviously bonds and friendship, but like I get they didn't hear their internal monologue, but had Yidra lost this episode and like the whole competition, they were gonna make her do some unholy, ungodly things to them. I'm not sure if that's who we want in our bonds of friendship group, but the opening definitely teases and confirms who will be, I guess, the other two makeshift rangers in our party. And by the end of the episode, we get the confirmation on, you know, them being in this anime already. They're like, oh, we need some more help. And it's like, oh my God, who's going to help? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. They went up against some really cool stuff. And I think what's great too is they showed in this episode that it's not just going to be current day stuff that we deal with. We will also have flashbacks to when he was a ranger in his original world, which is really fun because what that means is we're gonna both have the over-the-top ridiculousness of like a Power Ranger style anime on top of a isekai fantasy stuff. So I like too how more or less like that starts as like the, hey, remember back in the day when Red Ranger and Blue Ranger did this, and now we're using that same combination or weapon with insert fantasy mage busting out of her top, and it's fantastic. They also had a really funny moment where he summons and it's like, it kind of did what it needed to, but at the same time, I'm just like assuming, oh yeah, like obviously they're in a cave, but he'll just bust through the cave. No, he gets stuck. And they have to crawl out of the mouth. That's really, really funny to me. I did have some people last week because, like I mentioned, and I wasn't the only one confused. Hell, I saw some people who love this type of stuff, and they're like, no, that's not how it works. But apparently, there are select instances where, you know, a singular ranger can actually summon all of the parts himself. And I guess there's actually been examples prior to even this anime. It's just not common, but it can work. And given the fact that he had all the parts on him, which is why he's able to summon the big bad boy, even though sometimes gets stuck in a cave. Production value, I think, is really solid for this one. There's definitely elements where you're like, oh man, like it looks a little cheesy. It looks a little like lower value, but I think that just adds to the almost Ranger charm to it. You know what I mean? Like it's just, I mean, I've never, like, even what is considered high value production for these like Sentai series, like I've never really been like, yeah, that feels high value. That's just me though. I'm not, people really want me to like, they've always like, no matter what type of anime I've watched, if I've ever referenced this type of stuff, they're like, no, you gotta watch this one. I've tried a lot. They're just not for me. But I like it when it's an anime or it's drawn because it's like, it just, the vibe of it feels better, you know? But I think no matter which direction you fall on, you're probably gonna have a good time. Whether you're a diehard Rangers fan, you've never really liked them to begin with, there's something, because it's simultaneously a parody, but it also takes itself so seriously. Like, it's weird because like Red Ranger takes himself seriously. Busty Witch, she's just confused as hell. But then like the anime, it's like, no, we're actually gonna tell you a story. But it's like, are you though, or are you doing a parody? It's like, it bounces around so much, but the formula is just fresh and exciting. It's funny. And honestly, the action is really fun because you can't deny, I don't know, man. Imagine any fantasy, it's like mods in a video game. You can have the most like serious warfare driven game and you insert a unicorn gun. That's gonna make a lot of people laugh. You have a medieval high fantasy game and you give them a AK-47, you're gonna laugh. There's something about modding video games that can be very, very fun. Maybe you don't want it on your first playthrough. Maybe you don't always want to mod your games, but sometimes you want to sit back with a Red Ranger and a Busty Witch and just watch them use the bonds of friendship. And if that isn't entertainment, I don't want to live in this world anymore. You let me know your thoughts and feelings down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new around here. Of course, ring that bell. And like I mentioned, we have those full live reactions over on Patreon. And hey, while you're over there, I'll also give you a video shout out. Alright, so today we got Conrad Sosin, Sovereign, Tobias Reinhold, Flav Dorks 414, Wen2X, Drift, Casey Holscher, and we also have Simulcrum. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care. Y'all have a good one.